as a cosmetic? Raise your hand. You know, Liliana, it was too much. It was too expensive, so that's why. But I guarantee that, it's worth, the investment. Anyway, so this afternoon on the stage we have Liliana, George, and it's a real pleasure to have her, on the stage, because I've been chasing her for years. I wanted her to come to BioMarine, but she was too busy. So, Liliana first, for our audience, that will grow in a few minutes. They are still drinking coffee, but can you explain to our audience and the camera who you are?
Thank you, Pierre, so much, and I'm always so humbled by the way you introduce me, and I'm happy that finally I'm here at this conference. So my name is Liliana George. I have a PhD in organic chemistry, so I like to say I'm a scientist by training. I started my career in the medical field. At some point, I was working for a supplier. So if you are in the supplier area, I feel your pain. And the supplier decided to expand their portfolio to skincare. And they asked me to switch from organic synthesis, which is what I was trained to do, to skincare product innovation, which as a scientist, I kept asking, why are we doing all these things? It didn't make sense to me until I started to understand that there are technologies that are the basics of all these products that we are putting on the market. And I created a technology that I presented around the industry, all the big houses, Estée Lauder being one of them. And 2 years later, I got 3 jobs offers. And one was with Estée Lauder, so I joined, luckily, the company. In the innovation team, I've been with innovation for Estée Lauder for 18 years, in charge of new ventures, and then for the last 10 years, when the company wanted to have a special corporate team dedicated to natural, organic, green, blue, sustainable innovation, I was in charge of that. And because you mentioned La Mer, when I started my career with Estée Lauder, the innovation hub of Estée Lauder had the mission to add products to the crème de la mer, which Estée Lauder purchased from the inventor, from Max Huber. So I was very privileged to work on that brand and learn from the best and work with the best.
So I don't know where I'm going to start. I have so many questions. But first, so I understand that cosmetic is in your DNA. Can you tell us, from your perspective, what are the trends and what can we expect in the next future? Are we still thinking of plastic microbead as a pollutant, as the usual business as usual? Or is it something cleaner, bluer, more environment friendly that it's going to happen soon?
Yes. That's a very interesting question. A lot of people are talking about the green revolution. I don't necessarily think that we are there yet. I think we are far from what I would call the tipping point that will initiate the revolution, but there are movements. And there are 3 movements, as I would describe them, that actually they seem to be independent of each other, but they are correlated. One, which not a lot of people are talking about, would be safety and performance. Because the consumer is preoccupied. And there is no serious brand that will launch a product on the market without a safety profile. So safety is paramount, is the first requirement, and then performance is what will bring the consumer back to the counter. So you will come back because that product does something good for your skin. So I'm saying safety and performance, and I'm not associating the statement or the movement with naturals or green or synthetics because the requirement should be across the industry. The next movement I would call the so-called hybrids. You know, we function in a world where skincare is separate from makeup. And you go to the counter and you have skincare products on one side and you have makeup products on the other side. But then about 10 years ago, companies started launching hybrid products that are products that actually start in the skincare area where they provide the moisturization, SPF, everything that you need for your skin to feel good, to look good, and then they shift to makeup. So the hybrids were and continue to be an interesting movement. And the third, and the reason why you asked me the question, and I'm going in circles to get to your answer, is the natural, organic, green and blue movement. And I think green and blue have the potential to be a lot more impactful than natural and organic.
How come?
Because when I say green and blue, I say sustainability. When I say natural, that doesn't necessarily imply sustainable. So I would really advise, if anyone is interested, when you talk about your brand, to think about where are we going with this. And where we are going is sustainability will become the entry point. Will not be, in my opinion, a point of difference. Will be the reason, the way we should source the raw material, we should treat our product. So I see this huge opportunity for green and blue, beyond natural and organics.
Good. What is the feeling about, those evolution, for the consumer? I know that the consumer in the US is very different, from the consumer in Europe. And what are the trends? What are the expectations?
So, again, the expectation is safety and performance.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
Not the cost?
Because, we do a lot of consumer research. And we ask consumers a lot of questions. And what you learn after a while is that we are trained to give answers that will please the people that are asking the questions. So if I ask a consumer, if I give you two products, one is green and the other one is synthetic, what are you going to purchase? 90% will say green. But the reality is that you purchase a product for a function. So green is not enough. It needs to be performing. And in order to win between green and synthetic, it has to be outperforming. It has to offer something that the synthetic route cannot achieve it.
So another question that is, from my perspective, very important. When you were at Estee Lauder, you had lots of manpower, research, development. But if you are a young startup, you work with marine ingredient, pure marine ingredient.
Yes.
How do you think that you'll be able, to deliver the good quality product, and how will you be able, to reach out to the consumer? Because distribution is also key. And
yes.
How can we overcome those difficulties?
Right. This is extremely important. And I will tell you what I believe. There is an A to Z that a raw material needs to be taken through, and a product needs to meet in order to be successful in the marketplace. So a supplier or as a product producer, you need to know the A to Z. But obviously, as a startup, you may not be able to cover all those points. So as long as you are aware of what the expectations are, you will know who to partner with. There is a saying, if you cannot conquer them, join them. You have to find your partners, really, because there are companies that will be able to work with you and take you to the medium firm, the large firm, because everybody is very anxious to find new technologies, to find new raw materials. So as long as you know the A to Z, you actually have greater chances to succeed.
The next question is about, the ingredient itself. Can you make sure and be sure that, the ingredient is the right one for a key success story? You want to develop something, but it comes from the sea, it comes from the Amazon, from the forest, or wherever. What is the process to make sure that, this ingredient is the ingredient?
Well, so I talked about partners. I didn't talk about competition. Another thing that you need to know is who is your competition. Because you have an algae extract, let's say, there are many out there There are many ways to extract algae. There are many components that can be identified in algae. And I'll give you an example. There is a brand that is called the Algenist. They have an algae extract. But what they figured out, it's a microalgae. What they figured out is that they need to find a point of difference. So they worked with a lab, and they identified something that they called alguronic acid. And they did studies with this alguronic acid, and they found some anti-aging properties. So they figured out a way to introduce a whole line of products based on alguronic acid, which is basically microalgae, extracted fraction.
So what you're saying to the young entrepreneurs that live in a natural environment, it's not only the environment and the ingredient that you're going to find in the sea. It's a lot of work, lots of networking, and maybe huge investment. Is that correct?
Well, if you really have something that you took, I said A to Z, you took from A to C, so you know what's the composition, and you have some idea of the science, then I've met here people that are with universities or research centers. They have very impressive science. So I would assume you can partner with them to do further research so that when you present a raw material, you have the story and you have the clinicals. Because, first thing that you sell to a consumer is a story. Just remember that. You are a woman or a man that goes to the counter. Something needs to attract you. And we react to emotion. It's an emotional moment when you purchase a product. So you need to have the story. The story doesn't bring you back to the counter. The performance will bring you back. So you need the clinicals to back up the story.
Okay, so it's not only marketing. We need research, we need clinicals. But, how did you do, with La Mer? Because La Mer become a world reference. So you need also marketing and strong marketing.
Absolutely.
So that means a lot of money?
So La Mer was created by Max Huber. Max Huber was first and foremost a scientist, and he had some burns on his face that he wanted to create a product to heal himself. So he was ahead of his time, and he looked at kelp from California and the fermentation process to actually create something that was bioavailable to the skin. So, everybody that is familiar with La Mer knows that the story is with this miracle broth. This is what the miracle broth is. And if you think of products that you buy on the marketplace, the first ingredient is water. Right? So you mix oil in water, and the first ingredient is water. This is the carrier in emotions. When you think about La Mer, you have to think about the miracle broth. That is the ferment that feeds your skin. So from the start, you have a clear difference.
Okay. Let's go back to Pure Beauty. What are your projects for the next coming months?
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Pure Beauty. So last July, I started this consulting firm that has a very clear mission to work with startups to develop on concept development and product innovation. Because you need to have a concept, this is the first thing, and then you have to have innovative products that will attract the consumer. And it is my belief that the more startups you find that actually want to execute a brand, a line of product correctly, the better off we'll all be. So I'm very, startups I learned, they are very enthusiastic, they are passionate about what they have, but then they don't necessarily know the A to Z. So I work with them on the execution. And I'm very selective on what partners we are working with. But to give you an example, I'm using companies that actually can bring something new to the marketplace. Because nowadays the consumer is more and more interested in the experience. And everything has to happen quickly. And at the point of sale, they want to find something that will get them very interested. So, for instance, I'm working with this company called Nectar, and they are a bath and body company. And they decided that they want to go into skincare, and go into skincare in a very natural and sustainable way, very green and blue way. And they also wanted to have an experience in the store. So I'm working with them to develop this high-performing line of products that will offer the consumer the experience at the point of purchase.
Excellent. You had, during the last 2 days, you have been working with Vincent and Kim on this, co-op, to try to collect, all the energies about, the grabbing the ingredient producer together. I think that you're also very committed to gender equality, women in work and research and development. But if we're talking about, those Nordic communities, what will be the advantage, to work with such a model? And is there, in your mind, a real advantages to cooperate, with local population, try, to develop the economic part of their regions, and what kind of products altogether we can prepare for the next generation of cosmetic?
Right. It's a great advantage because they know what I don't know. They really understand the environment and how species evolved to adapt to this particular environment. And they are also passionate. It's really a privilege to learn and work with people like him. And also I want to tell you something which is not a joke. You probably know I've been associated with Same Sky for a number of years. So Same Sky is a women empowerment organization, basically goes to Africa or the United States and offers sustainable employment to women. And what I learned is that the best skincare product is when you are proud of what you do. And I'm not making this up. Because I saw those women that survived the Rwandan genocide and, have all these horrible experiences in life. The moment they started making something with their own hands and selling it and putting a roof over their head, the smile is amazing. They are radiant. So I really believe that working with communities, you learn from them, you help them, but they also help you.
I love this. For our audience, because we have in the audience a lot of people that want to develop, sustainable product in cosmetic, in neutral cosmetic. So what would be your final message? What would be an inspiring message for those young generation?
I have to say that I consider myself a very fortunate woman. Because let's say there are many women that have PhDs. But I was given the opportunity to work on impactful projects for a very significant company. And I had the privilege to get educated by one of, the biggest icons of the industry, Leonard Lauder. So I would share with you something that he told me. And the lesson is very long, but I will concentrate it in
Take
few
your
words.
time. We have plenty of time.
So the lesson was about dreaming. And what Leonard Lauder figured out was that I have big dreams. But then what he said to me can be concentrated in 4 words. Dream with a plan. If you don't have a plan, you are just dreaming. And what I would like to add is be passionate, be curious, and be fearless.
Excellent. I see that we have at least 1 or 2 minutes, and it was not on the on the paper. It was not planned. But anybody wants to ask a question to Liliana? I'm sure. Who wants to add a question to Liliana? Go ahead. Take the mic.
Okay. What are the main advantages?
Can you introduce yourself, Roland?
Roland Konanek from CBB Cabiotech Technical Center, located in Brittany. So we are working on marine cosmetics. But I want to know what are your what do you think about the main advantages of blue cosmetics as compared to other natural cosmetics, green cosmetics, for instance?
Yes. So we learned that there are chemical entities like the exopolysaccharides that are unique to algae. But what is very fascinating is that this is like a white canvas. We know so little about it. And if you want me to make the comparison with green, there are companies that ask themselves very simple questions that go beyond how you extract ingredients from plants. They go to how do plants deal with oil in water? And they figured out. So they offer now the industry a way to create products independent of the traditional emulsifiers way. And I would ask you the same question. Does the marine world know how the marine plants deal with oil in water and water? And if you answer this question, you will offer the industry additional tools to make products the blue way.
That's important. We have another great woman in science in the room, Denise Leblanc. Denise is one of the manager at the National Research Council. Denise, what do you do on the microalgae at this time that could serve the cosmetic industry? I'm asking the question for you, Liliana.
Okay, thank you.
Take the mic, Denise.
We had lunch together, so we are acquainted.
You need to talk together because I think
Thank you, Pierre. I'm going to get you for this, but that's okay. Actually, we have a session we're hosting, and it's really about inputs for food and feed. But the work that we do at the National Research Council is looking at different strains of algae, how to grow it sustainably. Different types have different oil content, so there's a lot of work going on in algae at the National Research Council, but around the world, that could provide the sustainable inputs with the characteristics that you're looking for, because it does depend, as you said, really on the product and what the consumer wants the product to do. So There's a lot of research, so we can talk.
Absolutely.
Stay for our session.
Yes.
Yes. It's a must talk,
Yes.
This is very interesting. And now we have our friends coming from Iceland. And Lilia,
yes.
Do you have a question for Liliana?
Yes. Yeah, so I have a background in I work in metabolism, inflammation, and regeneration, so I don't work anything related to cosmetics. But I was interested in the beauty in a pill, the concept.
Beauty in a pill?
Yeah.
Yes.
So could you inform us of, what the status is right now and how you maybe see it in the future? In regards to maybe, for example, regulatory issues, maybe bring that in a little bit?
Yes, I'm not the best person to answer this question, but I will tell you what I believe. Yeah. It has to do with what us as consumers are used to. Because Asian women, they relate to these ingestibles because it's something that is part of their culture. So the beauty from within concept is a lot more popular in Asia than in Europe and the US. Having said that, the trend is growing in Europe and in the US, and there are clear efforts from big and small cosmetic houses to create the bridge.
Arvid, is it something that you're working on at this time in Norway? Take the mic. He's a good guy. Did you talk to him?
No.
You didn't talk to Liliana? Oh, come on. What's wrong with you this year?
Hi, Liliana.
Hi.
Yes, Pierre, we're trying to develop a holistic concept like that. We haven't figured it out all out yet, but there are a number of difficulties. There are two sets of rules to adhere to, and the regulatory part is definitely an obstacle.
Yes.
What do you mean by an obstacle? Is it as complicated as a nutraceutical product?
Well, say if you want to make a cosmetic line of products, and you're going to base that on a single star ingredient, and you're going to put that particular star ingredient also in the dietary supplements, then all of a sudden you have two different rules there too, and you
have two different organizations to regulate
exactly.
your line.
Exactly.
So this is where the difficulty comes.
So that's going to be a difficult trend, to follow, or do you think the market will react to that, or?
Well, there is that movie that says if you build it, they will come, and I will add to it. If you will actually have the data to support that this approach takes the performance at a significantly higher level, they will come. Because, every day we look into the mirror, and if we did the night before worked, we'll buy the product again.
For sure. Thank you very much. Is there any other question before we close the interview? Nobody? Honestly, it's going to be such a nightmare to try to reach out to Liliana. When she's off Rimouski, no more question. She is a flying Dutchman. She's all over it.
I'm a flying Romanian.
Okay, Liliana, thank you very much for your time, and
thank you.
I hope it was not harsh, on you. And it's such a pleasure to have you with us, in Rimouski today. Thank you, Liliana.
Was it fantastic?